This is Prompting Potential, where we step into the world of entrepreneurs, innovators inside and outside of organizations who ignite inspiration, fuel innovation, and unleash imagination against all odds. Prompting Potential spotlights incredible individuals and influential ideas at the intersection of leadership, technology, and transformation. I'm Roger Rohatke, the Chief AI Officer at Chai, and you can find us at heychai.ai. Welcome to Prompting Potential. Today, I'm speaking with Sarah Karthigan, Vice President of AI at Weatherford. She's the force behind launching AI at scale across the oilfield services giant and formally driving AI and enterprise data strategy at Exxon Mobil and Chevron. Today's conversation explores how human-centered AI is transforming energy innovation at scale, turning technology into solutions that truly empower people. Sarah, thanks so much for being here. So Sarah, welcome. So great to have you on the show. I want to really get into your background, know a little bit more about you for our audience, and really just find out how you kind of first came into the energy sector, and then how did you go from coming into the energy sector to, getting into, AI and all the things you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Roger. Thanks for having me. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. So a little bit about myself. I was born in Madras. Now it's called Chennai, India. When I was growing up, my parents gave me two options, right, of what I could do when I grow up. And it was become an engineer or follow a career in medicine. If you know Indian parenting, that will sound very familiar. So out of the two options, I picked engineering because I liked solving problems, and it was a non-starter for me when it comes to blood. So it was pretty clear that I will pursue a career in engineering. I always wanted to come to the United States to pursue my college education. So very grateful to God for opening those doors for me. So I made it here, and I graduated college with a master's in electrical engineering. I began my career at Exxon Mobil. I did not pursue intentionally a career in the energy sector. It just happened that I ended up with a role at Exxon, and I must say it was one of the most fascinating things. And I was really impressed by the sector at large. The opportunity to solve problems at a scale that is truly unimaginable. So that's what really attracted me. So getting this opportunity to solve really difficult problems and being able to have an impact globally. So that's what made me stay at the sector. I worked for Exxon for about 18 years, and from there transferred to Chevron for 2.5 years. And currently I am serving as the Vice President of AI at Weatherford. So that's my very quick career journey from begin to end.
Through your journey, tell me a little bit more how AI began to evolve for you and how you began to get into AI.
That's a great question. So when I started my career at Exxon Mobil, I did get the opportunity to rotate to different parts of the business and get exposed to different ways of how we work in the energy sector. One of my assignments actually took me to New Jersey, where I supported corporate strategic research. And it is the office location where there's a lot of just amazing research that happens. I happened to get involved in a project that was assessing cognitive computing. So this is the time frame when Watson won Jeopardy. And so everybody was beginning to talk about AI and machine learning and cognitive computing. And I got pulled into this project where some of the researchers at Exxon were assessing what are these capabilities, how much of this is just hype versus what's real. And when I got involved in this effort, I was truly fascinated with what technology can do and the impact that it can have on the energy sector. And I also wanted to have an intelligent conversation with the other researchers. And although I felt I was quite technical up until that point, I realized very quickly there's not much I know about this space. And so that really inspired me to go back to school and study data science. And I had the opportunity to pursue data science at Harvard while working working for Exxon, and it was one of the best decisions that I made in my life. When I graduated out of that program, it ended up opening new doors for me and helping shape my career at the intersection of AI and energy.
Yeah. Well, no, I love that story. And, that journey is incredible. And I think, now being Vice President of AI at Weatherford, who are engineering the future of energy, you have this vantage point, right? Where you can look at all the, evolution of AI within, that energy sector. And so I guess where are we, or where is AI really on the maturity curve as it relates to this energy sector?
AI, I think we're truly at an inflection point, right? I do believe that we have crossed the threshold of asking, can AI do this? To how do we scale these AI solutions responsibly? So that's the question that we are asking now, not so much, can I use AI to do this? I truly believe that for the energy sector, we are quickly moving from just experimenting with models to now implementing systems and that can scale across the different businesses that we have. So that includes your back office functions as well as the stuff that we do in the front office. And so AI can have a huge impact. What I'm also seeing is that AI, we're also making that shift from looking at AI to help with efficiency to transferring to actually shifting towards intelligent orchestration. So that's super exciting. Yeah. So that's the future that I'm seeing for AI in the energy sector, where we are able to leverage AI to orchestrate people and systems and really just help with dynamic decision making.
Yeah, and it's massive, right? The scale is huge, and going from that experimentation to really implementation is probably key. And I think for a lot of people, AI is in the news every day; it's everywhere, but it still seems a bit abstract until it probably delivers the real outcomes that you and I know it can deliver. So I guess one of the questions is, how do you really get that measurable result or measurable value from AI?
That's another great question, Roger. I was recently at a conference and for AI leaders, and guess what was the topic that was top of mind for everybody? Okay. So how do we extract value out of AI, right? Especially in light of some of the recent reports that came out, the MIT report that came out, talking about, there's not much value people are able to harness out of AI. And then we see other news articles about us being in an AI bubble. So a lot of skepticism out there that can we truly get a return on investment when it comes to AI? So when you talk about value, this is how I look at things. This is actually a framework that Gartner presented, and I found that very interesting. So when you look at AI use cases and when you look at value across those use cases, you have to think about it in terms of three categories or three tranches, right? There is the first category, which Gartner calls it defend, and it's really all about augmenting your employees. So think of it as a return on employee. And so this is where all your productivity use cases, also what I would like to call everyday AI use cases, right? They fall into this category. And this is not something that is going to translate into green dollars, but this is still a category that is extremely important. This is not something that you can omit. This is needed for us to just maintain competitive parity. I'll give you an example of a use case that we worked on at Weatherford. So one of the challenges that our category management team was having was related to categorizing spend data. So there's a lot of spend data that remains uncategorized because it's an extremely manual process, very cumbersome. People need to go look up emails, try to understand, make those connection between invoices to, what spend this actually is it direct or indirect or whatnot. And it took people hours, when I say hours, thousands of hours to sort through $1 billion worth of spend and categorize it and to whatever right buckets they needed to go into. We were able to train a very simple AI classifier. We bootstrapped it with some of the rules that we already had in place. We trained it, and within minutes, this classifier is now able to classify your spend data to the 5th degree of precision, right, in the taxonomy. That it was trained on. So that's how quickly we can move. So now we're talking about saving thousands of hours. Wow. And as an example of a return on employee. So now the employee doesn't have to do all this work manually. They are able to go ahead and just use the classifier, of course, validate the data that's coming out of it, because we do, in addition to the classification, we also provide a confidence factor, right? So they can now just kind of focus more so on those classifications that have a low confidence and retrain the system, right? Update the values and retrain the system, but it saves them, in summary, just good amount of time that they can spend elsewhere instead of doing this manual routine work. So it is very much needed. This category of use cases is extremely important, still needed. And what you will also observe is typically companies who are starting on their AI journey, that's where they start. The investment begins there on the return on employee aspect, right? But it's still very much a cost center. I'm cognizant of that, right? Yes, you can go ahead and sink in money into this area, but it's not going to yield you green dollars. It's more blue dollars, if you may. And then there's the next category, which is your extend use cases. So this is where now we're talking about a financial return. So this is your return on investment. Right. This is the area where you are, for example, you are able to convert more and get more in sales. So this is where you are able to optimize your operations, and this is where your investment is going to yield a return, which is also financial in nature. And so this is your extend bucket of use cases. Again, lots of great examples that we are pursuing at Weatherford. An example that comes to mind, and this is actually a good example of a use case that can go from the productivity category to the extend category. So it started out as a simple AI agent that we were able to train to compare documents. And so now you're comparing material test reports to the technical specs and see if it matches or not. So basically, you need a human who understands this space to make a good comparison and tell you what passed and what failed and what we need to do in terms of next steps. We were able to train an AI agent to do that. And the AI agent is smart enough to capture very quickly, even pull stuff out of diagrams, right? And tell you, okay, these are within our specs and these are outside of, out of bounds, and fail certain tests and pass certain tests. And so this started out as a productivity thing. And now we do see an opportunity to have leverage the efficiency that we are gaining from the hours saved to look at right-sizing the team to do it, right? So this could be one of those use cases that has a true financial return, right? So that's an example. The last category is called upend, right? So this is where you're looking at disrupting a market altogether, introducing a new business model altogether. So that's that type of category of use cases. And it's more of return on future, right? So return on employee, return on investment, return on future. And this is more of a venture bet. So that's the third category of use cases. Currently at Weatherford, my focus has been on the return on employee and return on investment.
Wow. So return on employee, ROE, return on investment, the ROI, we know, and return on future, on the future, ROF. So that's really amazing. And along with what you said around everyday AI, I think it's very, very interesting for us to get into and go a little bit deeper. I think one of the things that you've mentioned there, or actually several things, is hopefully inspiring to everybody watching. Obviously, to myself, it is, because these are real, tangible stories, use cases where not only are you going from experimentation. Now we're actually to implementation,
Sure.
but you're seeing the results. You're seeing this actually working, and this is real time stuff, right? So it's impressive. I think a lot of companies that are jumping into AI, and especially what we see, is that maybe their data isn't clean, or they can't really get to that use case. Maybe their processes aren't really fluid, right? They're disconnected. Their systems are legacy systems. There's so many integrations and so many different tools on their stack. It's just hard to really transition to AI, right? And I think one of the things I've been seeing is that companies that have been going through digital transformation now are trying to leapfrog into AI, yet they haven't been able to still fix their digital transformation work, and so AI is kind of beginning to just inherit those maybe broken processes or what have you. So talk to me a little bit about how you solve for that challenge around what it takes to prepare to be able to have a successful use case like you've done here.
So you raise a good point, right? So if your foundation is weak, no matter how big and how good your fancy building is going to be, it is going to be impacted at some point or the other, right? So no doubt, data is that foundation. So if you have a data ecosystem that is messed up, and yes, no matter how strong your AI solution is, yes, there's only so much that you can do with that solution. At the same time, I do acknowledge that solving the data problem is not easy.
Yeah.
It is not possible for anybody to claim that they have solved their data issue, that they have gotten to a point where they don't have to worry about data, or they don't have to deal with quality issues. None of us will ever reach that point.
Yeah.
But being mindful of the fact that we can take an approach where we don't have to try to boil the ocean. So if we resort to, let me fix my data issues before I take on AI, we will never get to that point.
Right.
So we do have to make sure that we are able to still make progress in our AI journey, knowing that, yes, in some of our foundation, we have some cracks, right? So dealing with it, repairing the foundation as we continue to build. So that is the approach that I resorted to. So knowing that there is no perfect data ecosystem that's going to be available in any company, it's understanding the challenges that are inherent to whatever ecosystem that you're working with, but still being able to extract valuable data and work and build models on top of that, and build agents that are able to function. So that is the approach that I took, and which means you are tackling your data issues one pocket at a time. Right? You're not trying to solve it all at one go, but you're dealing with the data that is needed for the use case. You're addressing the issues that you're seeing with the data, and you're fixing stuff as you go, as you continue to build.
Yeah. Wow. That is a really interesting lesson that you've learned. And, sometimes things don't go as planned and as perfect. Obviously, you've done some incredible work here, and we've seen are already seeing some amazing results from, what you're doing with these use cases. But, maybe tell me, what are some other lessons that you've learned when things maybe didn't work out so perfectly?
Two common reasons that happens where your AI initiative doesn't succeed. It comes down to, of course, data, the data ecosystem that you're dealing with. And then it comes down to the people that you're working with, right? So, we talked a little bit about data, so I'll touch on the people aspect. Yeah. So one of my biggest lessons learned, and this is not unique just to AI, this is just any innovation in general, you need to be very clear about what is the problem that you're trying to solve, which means you have engaged the end users from the get-go, right? From your design phase. Nobody is interested in a solution that you're building where you have engaged ultimately the end user. You haven't done a good job at engaging them early on. And then here you have built all this fancy solution in a silo, and then you throw it over the fence and you expect that it's going to get adopted right away. That is sometimes the biggest hurdle that can get in the way for a successful implementation and adoption. So my biggest lesson learned is doesn't matter whatever the use case may be, it doesn't matter what the AI solution may be. Let's make sure that we are drafting those end users who are going to benefit out of the solution early on, right into that design phase. So there's a sense of co-innovation, right? So that they were involved from the get-go in developing and addressing this challenge and developing a solution for it. And then it becomes their own. And then now they have a vested interest in making it successful. So that would be one of my biggest lessons learned.
You are so right. I mean, people, right? That is the most important part of this whole entire equation, especially with AI. I guess when you look at everything that you're building and, obviously that your peers are working on, and as AI is getting smarter and more autonomous, how else should we be thinking about how people or humans and the human role should be integrated into this, future of AI and the way that we do work?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? So I know there's a lot of concerns that are floating around about the impact of AI on humans. This is how I would approach it. I think irrespective of what AI solution we're going after, we have to design keeping the humans in the center.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is ultimately technology is for augmenting humans. And it is not so much about making humans redundant. So we need to be very, very intentional about how we even approach the design of the AI solution. So if we are approaching it with that mindset of this is about augmenting our humans, keeping humans in the center and designing your solution around it, trust me, you are building a workplace where people are going to want to work in the future, right? So I think that is key. The mindset, the approach that you take towards how you are going to adopt AI to transform the enterprise is key. Yeah. And I do think very strongly that humans will continue to play a very key role. It is not going to be so much about doing those repetitive tasks, or, I cited the example of how we were able to improve productivity by building an AI solution that now frees up humans. So it's not so much the same type of work that they've done in the past, but we're now talking about just a new type of skill set that will be needed for future jobs that are going to be even more exciting, that are going to be leveraging the right side of our brain quite heavily.
Yeah. And I want to go back. So on that note, to what you said earlier about everyday AI, and I want to maybe double click into that. And, I know that you kind of talked a little bit about that in general, but can you give some more examples what you really mean by everyday AI and how that correlates to what you just spoke about around humans being involved like that?
I think any task which is extremely manual and repetitive is a good candidate for an everyday AI solution. If there's an opportunity for us to automate it, we should absolutely do that. Any task that is consuming a lot of time for a human, where they're just looking for information and trying to build some reports and all of this happening very manually, those are all very, very good candidates for automation, for AI solutions, and they all fall into that category, into that bucket of everyday AI. So everyday AI solutions are, in a nutshell, solutions that can improve productivity.
Okay, so that's everyday AI, and that's going on in their daily work. But when you kind of zoom out now on this macro scale of enterprise, and you think about again the sector, the industry of energy, and how much needs to be done to be able to make this work. It's massive, right? It's pretty daunting to think about that. And everything is moving so fast. AI innovation is moving fast. The industry has to move in its own pace as well. And especially in the energy industry, people in that industry cannot afford to be careless, right? And so when you think about that, right, and you look at that context, how can enterprises move quickly and still stay responsible, right? Ensuring that there's transparency, trust, governance, and all of that is baked into every deployment at that scale, but also care for people at the same time.
When I hear the word governance, the first thing that comes to mind for me is the definition of friction, right? So, for some reason, this just stuck with me, right? So, when I think it was elementary school or middle school when my physics teacher introduced the concept of friction. So, the definition that she gave was friction is a necessary evil, right? And we understand that yes, friction can be bad for surfaces and it can erode surfaces and whatnot, but at the same time it's something that is needed for us to operate effectively. And that's what I think of governance. Not that it's an evil, but governance is truly an enabler. And when we have the right guardrails in place, it can actually accelerate innovation. Typically, when people think of guardrails and governance, and they think, oh, that's going to impede innovation. Things are going to start moving slowly. It's not going to work. And we're just going to be caught up with going through our checks and balances and whatnot. And we're not going to be able to move fast. That is not necessarily the case. Governance done right can actually foster trust. And when you are able to build trust, guess what? That is going to accelerate your innovation. Now, you need to be, of course, smart and careful about the governance model that you set up, the frameworks that you set up in your enterprise. It has to be fit for risk, right? Yeah. So it can be two-tiered. If you're experimenting, you don't have to have those same level of scrutiny that you would put on solutions that are of high impact, like a safety solution or something that's tied to that could have potential regulatory consequences, right? Yeah. So looking at it through those lenses are going to be key in how you apply governance. But altogether, it has to be fit for risk. And I truly think that it is an enabler. You mentioned transparency, traceability, absolutely key. And I do think in this future that we are moving towards, where we're going to be co-working with agents and whatnot, accountability is going to be key too. And governance helps set that up for you, and it has to be part of your design.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And, I think when I hear you talk about that, and, you laid it out so clearly, it reminds me of how complicated and or maybe complex the role that you have is, right? Leading AI. I know that even in my role as well, you have to think through not just the innovation, not just how the pace of AI is going to change and how it's going to make a difference and return on investment or return on employee and so forth, and how it's going to be built, right, and how it's going to scale and the tools that we're going to use, but all those other aspects, responsibility, safety, governance, trust, transparency, and all those things. And so that AI fluency of understanding it from all those different angles, a lot of times lies within technical experts or those that really are living and breathing this every day. But still, AI needs to be a part of everyday lives and like you called it, everyday AI. So I think when you think about AI fluency, for leaders today, and not just technical experts, what does that look like for, executives, operators, and, business decision makers?
AI fluency is not about learning to code. And you said it very well. This is not about gaining a bunch of technical skills. That's not what we are looking for when we talk about AI fluency for modern leaders. For me, AI fluency is more about comprehension and interpretation, understanding what AI could do for your business, how it could transform your business model,
right,
how it could change your cost structures or even shape your talent needs, right? That is the literacy that we need to focus on for our modern leaders. When I think about what type of traits would be needed in our future leaders so they can help the enterprise truly lead through this transformation. It all comes down to curiosity and learning, right? So having those leadership traits is going to be key to how leaders are able to adopt and adapt, so they can continue to lead in the future. It's going to come down to storytelling and being able to engage with the enterprise, with the employees, share with them what this transformation is all about, what AI can do for the enterprise, and what AI can do for them. So that's what, for me, AI literacy is all about for our modern leaders.
Yeah, and that's huge, right? Because it becomes a shared language across the org, and people really begin to feel like they have ownership into it, or they're able to adopt it, right? So maybe let's talk a little bit about that, because a little bit more, because I think one of the things that I keep seeing that is forgotten or maybe missing is this true adoption focus, right? And the true discipline or practice of change management. And I think, a lot of times companies are like, well, we don't really need that anymore now. AI is just people are going to get it, right? But let's talk about that a little bit. How are you seeing the need for change management and adoption?
I can see why you're passionate about it, given your background. Yeah. I will say we need change management more than ever, right? And without change management, this is not something that is going to stick, especially given the size of impact that AI can have on an enterprise. It is extremely important right from the get-go that you're thinking through how you are going to manage this transformation and this change. How are you going to enlist your employees to be part of this journey, to make this journey successful? So we spend a lot of time thinking, planning, designing internally on how we are going to address this at Weatherford. So right from the get-go, as we are designing AI agents, right, we are always thinking about what type of change management has to follow. Yeah. And so with every rollout, we make it a point that we are following through with the right management of change to help our employees not only adopt those solutions, but also adapt our work processes going forward.
Yeah, and you're right. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I can see the need for it, tremendously, because a lot of times, organizations and people, really only see the short-sighted need for a tool or, AI or whatever, but don't really understand the impact it's going to make on people and what that really looks like, and how people really need to use it every day, like you mentioned so eloquently. So let's talk a little bit more about Weatherford. You kind of touched on a little bit there of how you're building AI agents and things, and I know we have some use cases that you mentioned that are becoming to return the right results. Where do you see AI going in Weatherford?
My role at Weatherford is to drive business transformation using AI. I'm super excited about this opportunity, and that's exactly where I see AI going for Weatherford. We are going to transform the way we do business in the company using AI. It doesn't matter which part of the enterprise that is going to be. It could be the back office functions. It could be the front office. It could be the game-changing AI ideas that are going to even disrupt the market. But we see the potential to transform the company overall using AI. So that's the future that I see for the company. For the energy sector at large.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think we are moving towards, if I were to just, gaze into my crystal ball, we are moving towards autonomous systems. And it'll become a reality sooner than we think. There's going to be a lot of intelligence that is sitting at the edge that is going to then support and enable autonomous operations. That is the future that we are going towards. I also think that we will be able to optimize across the integrated value chain. I know now innovation is happening in pockets, in silos, but that day is not too far when we will be able to optimize across exploration, drilling, production, I mean, the upstream, the downstream, midstream, all the way up to your sales and marketing functions. So I do see that happening, and I do see that we're working towards self-optimizing systems. So that is the future that I see. That's what excites me. It's very exciting about where we are headed, and needless to say, the role that humans are going to play in shaping that future.
Yeah, I think that's amazing to hear. And you touched on a little bit there around just a few years from now, right? Or very soon, this is going to happen. I mean, what are we talking about here? Like we're 2025, are we thinking like 2 years, 3 years, or really by 2030? I guess maybe let's paint a picture. What does 2030 look like?
I do think 2030 will be a year of intelligent orchestration that is enabling autonomous systems, right? I already think we are in the decade of intelligent orchestration. It has already started. But by 2030 in the energy sector, I'm hopeful to see self-optimizing systems and autonomous operations, not just in theory, but in reality.
Yeah. And I guess, what do you think is going to surprise you the most? I know you're excited about it, but what's going to surprise you the most about, maybe how AI, data, and human ingenuity all come together in the future?
Great question. I do think that in the future, AI is going to become commonplace, just like email, like, the way we do work every day, right? It's not going to be something that is novel anymore. It is going to be something, again, kind of back to your everyday AI use cases. I think it's going to be become totally common, something that we all do on an everyday basis. What might be surprising is, because this is contrary to popular opinion, the thinking is that our lives are going to become robotic. But I think it's the opposite. I think that's the surprise. I think work is going to become more human for human beings than being robotic. So all these repetitive tasks and all the redundancy is going to be addressed by AI, really just leaving humans for using their creativity, their learning and curiosity to do human type of work.
Well, that's really inspiring to hear. So let me kind of ask you, another question around the future. Clearly, there's a lot of talk about not just what AI is going to do for companies and what it will mean for us as humans, but the amount of energy that it takes to sustain an AI is becoming more and more important for us to think about, right? And I guess you're working in this in right in the middle of needing energy for AI and AI for energy. How do you view that?
That's what makes my job really exciting, right? Right at the intersection of AI and energy. As you rightfully pointed out, it's we need energy for AI. We also need AI for energy. And that's the paradox, right? So here we are wanting to use AI to optimize the energy sector, to make it more efficient and effective. But if the energy consumption for training those models, if it is going to defeat the purpose of the efficiency that you're wanting to drive, what's the point of it all, right? So being very mindful of that from the get-go is going to be key. And so, because it's a known fact, right? You can query Google and get a response, or you can ask that same question using an LLM platform like ChatGPT. The amount of energy that's consumed for one is just huge orders of magnitude greater than the other. Right. And so being mindful of that is going to be key. There's a lot of education that needs to happen so that people have that awareness and they are able to appreciate what is, again, the right AI solution for the problem that you're trying to solve. So if it is going to end up consuming more energy and defeating the purpose of the benefits that it can drive, especially in the energy sector. I think there is no point in pursuing that. So it's being mindful of that. And it kind of even connects back to your whole responsible governance framework.
Yeah. And it's interesting to watch, right? I think, for many years, people kind of viewed tech over here and energy over here, and they were kind of two different worlds, one maybe from the old world or dinosaur and the other one's the new. But now they've really become to be synonymous with each other in many ways. And we obviously, it's been dependent, tech has been dependent on energy for forever, but now it's just even more and more clear. So I think that's an interesting perspective that you have. And really kind of reminds me through the whole conversation we've had, you have shared these nuggets of lessons learned and different insights that you've gotten through the years and stuff. And so maybe let's do like a little recap of that, and maybe just share again, like some of these lessons, summarize some of these things that you've learned along the way and things that people who are watching could take back to their companies and, maybe move from experimentation to implementation with things like everyday AI and so forth.
What I would say is if you are in a role where you have this wonderful opportunity to lead and create impact using AI, my biggest suggestion and advice would be, lead with curiosity, right? So stay curious, be always in that learning mindset. There is so much that can be done. The potential is huge, but it's going to come down to how much and how quickly you're willing to learn and adapt. So stay curious and explore very openly with a very open mind what AI can do for your business, how it can truly transform your business, where you are not just looking at augmenting what you're doing today, but you are reimagining how work gets done and how AI can play a role. So that's what I would suggest that you do. Have that open mindset and always keep human in the loop. I could not stress that more. Ultimately, we're doing all of this to make our lives better. So let's make sure that we keep humans right there in the center as we design these future models and future systems.
Wow, that's inspiring. So thank you for that. And another thing I love that you kind of called out was the, return on employee, return on investment, and return on the future, and hoping it's a great, connective tissue across the entire, organization through that orchestration that you're doing. So that's fantastic. Maybe let's dive into the lightning round of questions here toward the end. I know we're almost near time. So let's take what you've, kind of said around lessons learned for companies, but maybe let's talk about guiding mantra for AI leaders.
We talked about a lot of stuff today, so I'll just bring it all together with this guiding mantra. For me, it's going to come down to leading with curiosity, governing with integrity, and scaling responsibility. That's what a guiding mantra should be for any AI leader.
Okay. All right. So what's one risk that you're glad you took?
We talked about me having this opportunity to sit at the intersection of AI and energy. That's the biggest risk I took, taking that bet on AI when AI was not popular, or it was just all hype and people were debating if there's any value to it. I decided to pivot and bet my career on that. And I think that's one of the biggest risks that I took, and it has paid off. I'm a risk taker in general. Yeah. I know it doesn't sound that great when I also tell you I work for the energy sector, but I take cautious risks. But this is one of those bets that I'm so glad that I made.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. So finish this sentence. Prompting potential means...
Prompting potential is all about unlocking what's possible, not just in machines, but also in humans. So the more we ask, the more we discover. I truly think that the future belongs to those who ask better questions.
Okay. Well, all right. So that was awesome. So how can people find you and learn more about Weatherford as well?
You can find me on LinkedIn and also on X. And Weatherford, please do check out our website. It has lots of great info and all the different areas where we are innovating.
So, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your vision on everyday AI and what it really means to scale intelligence across people, platforms, and the energy enterprise. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Sarah reminded us that AI's real power lies in amplifying human expertise, turning data, responsibility, and innovation into everyday impact across the energy sector. You can connect with her on LinkedIn, and to find out more about us at Chai, go to heychai.ai. To everyone listening, stay curious, stay collaborative, and keep prompting your potential.